Alrighty. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. It's a beautiful and unusually warm day here for January. Welcome back to the channel. This is your neighborhood friendly Scottish whiskey hobbit. Once again, broadcasting to you live from our glorious and opulent back deck, which we redid last year, Adventures in Homeowning. So, this week is really going to be an adventure of a review, ladies and gentlemen. So hold on to your hats here. Is that how the saying goes? Hold on to your whatever that saying is. So, if you guys go back to the history of this channel, I believe it was last summer, just on a whim, I bought it was like $15-20, the famous Grouse blended Scottish whiskey. My legendary Uncle Ted, who's a published author and an eccentric but really cool guy. Anyways, he is a really big fan of that cheap whiskey I reviewed. But to make a long story short, last summer I reviewed that famous Grouse blended whiskey that was dirt cheap and I liked it. Well, fast forward to right now. We are going to do a little bit of a experiment, if I can use that term. This blended Scotch was $10 for this. That's right, $10. And myself and this very sassy dram do have a little bit of a history. That's what the bottle looks like. It's Clan MacGregor blended Scotch. Now this is made by Grant and Sons. Grant and Sons is that huge whiskey conglomerate, that huge whiskey making company out of Scotland. They also make Balvenie. They also own and they also make Glenfiddich, and they also make Grants. They make at least 4 or 5 different varieties of Scotch, but this Clan MacGregor here is kind of like, for lack of better terms, their bottom of the barrel dram. Now, a couple of little pieces of information before I dive into this review. So, for starters, many years ago, when I was a wee lad, I was like 19, 20, I was living in my first apartment. When I was in college, back when I worked 2 jobs, I was in 2 different metal bands. I had hardly any time at all. I was mostly unsuccessfully chasing beautiful women all across the Northland. It was a really interesting time in my life. But I said all that to say this: during that time, uh, so this would have been 2010, 2011, in my first apartment. I used to drink this when I was 19 or 20, but I used to mix it, and of course, it wouldn't be until 5 or 6 years later that I started to get into being an actual connoisseur when I was in my late 20s. So what I'm interested in seeing is how does this compare to other blended scotches, and how bad is it, or how bad or how good is it for that incredible $10 price, which is just the lowest of the low. Because when I used to drink this when I was a wee lad, to use some Scottish slang, I was mixing it. So I didn't care about the flavor back then when I was just a stupid kid. Because again, I've reviewed some very cheap whiskeys like the Kilbeggan Irish whiskeys around 25 bucks. I've reviewed the famous Grouse blended Scotch I just mentioned. That was like 15, 18 bucks, and I actually liked it. So before I jump into the meat and potatoes here, one last thing. Incredibly, ladies and gentlemen, I Googled on my Google Pixel Watch. I asked the AI assistant what whiskey advocate gave this, and I expected it to be bad. In the July of 2019 issue of Whiskey Advocate, somebody at Whiskey Advocate gave it an 85, which I find almost unbelievable. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive in here. So let's check out the nose. This nose is a bit subdued. It's really interesting. I think I'm getting interesting. I think I'm getting maybe some pears, maybe some wood, which since this is so, I'm assuming this is aged in ex-bourbon barrels. I'm assuming that's typically what some of the cheapest oak barrels that are used in distilling. So I'm getting pears, and I'm getting almost like a oily kind of. It's hard to describe, like a oily. I'm not sure how to really place it. It's like wood, almost like, okay, maybe like a little bit of leather, maybe like a little bit of leather, a little bit of wood, and a little bit of that. Oh shoot, what was the first thing I said? Oh, yeah, like pears. But it's a really mild aroma, ladies and gentlemen. And let me see here, how am I doing on lighting? I don't really know. I see there's a glare in my phone. I'm almost filming this blind. Remember, folks, always hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. To help your liver and kidneys out, no matter, you always need to be staying hydrated before, during, and after drinking alcoholic beverages. Well, let's dive in here. Drum roll, please. That's a little foul. That's a little rough. So there's definitely a little bit of sweet and a little bit of spice going on. I'm definitely getting some peppery characteristics, and I definitely think I'm getting some sweetness on the malt. Now, when I said it was a little rough, it has like a quick finish. It has a very quick finish, and I guess it's a little bit harsh at the end. But I'm really getting peppercorns, maybe some lavender. I mean, almost like it's really hard to describe. Maybe a little bit of wood spice, peppercorn, and it's almost got that quick finish. It's almost like, I don't want to say oily, but I'm not actually sure how I feel about this. And before we continue the review, you guys know I'm into my Scottish heritage, and that's why the channel's called the Scottish Whiskey Hobbit. My grandparents on both sides being predominantly Scottish or English ancestry. Our clans, Gordon, Graham, McLachlan, Fulford, Lowry, all the intermarriages, you guys, Carnes, you guys I don't want to go on too much of a ramble, but at least 50% of my ancestry is Scottish. Now, with that being thrown out there, which I've already talked about, the reason I bring that up is that the McGregor clan have a very long and rich history. And during the 17th and basically the middle 17th, all the way to the early, basically, so that would be, hold on a second here, so the 17th century to about the late 18th century saw a lot of political upheaval and turmoil in the old country. It's why a bunch of our Scottish antecedents left Scotland to come to North America, because of all the violence, all the Civil War, everything that was going on. I'm a history guy. I won't ramble on about that. But it's interesting because I've grown up with a couple of friends that were Clan MacGregor, and the Scots were very passionate about our history. And the MacGregors were hunted. They were actually hunted by the government. And it's a severely long story that would take way too long to explain here. But I have it in my Highland clan history book where it talks about our clan Graham, that's my dad's mom, our clan Gordon, that's my grandpa's mom, or on the other side of our family, the Carnes, anyways, I'm rambling on. You guys watch my channel for whiskey reviews, not for genealogy. But I guess the point I'm trying to make, regardless of how I feel about how good or bad this Scotch is, I really respect the McGregors. And my grandpa always told me, his wife, my grandma Graham's people, we were allied with the McGregors. And anyways, I won't get into that. But we Scots, we never forget where we come from. We never forget. I have family photos going back to before the American Civil War of my Scottish ancestors. But anyways, whew, I'm veering off in another direction. Let's get back to this. But I really honor their memory and their legacy. This Highland clan has a rich heritage. I ought to pick up a bottle of our Clan Gordon single malt Scotch if I can get a hold of it. That's who I'm named after, my middle name. Anyways, so it's grown on me a little bit. And again, when I was in college and just a wild child before I met my wonderful wife, I was drinking this often because it was so cheap. But now that I'm drinking it straight, I have mixed feelings about it. I really feel like, all good things in moderation. I feel like the palate is very mild. You do get some of those wood spice notes. You do get some of the pepper notes. You do get some of the sweetness from the malt. But really, there's nothing that really punches you. There's nothing that really grabs my taste buds. So I might almost, and it's the finish is I'm a little disappointed in the finish, and that little bite at the end. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen, for $10, I really should not complain. So, for $10, for 10 buckaroos, it averages 12. For taste, for quality, for smoothness, for overall bang for your buck, I'd give this, really, for the money, especially at that price point, I was expecting this to be gross. It's not gross. It's not really bad, but I'm not really impressed by it either. So I'm really struggling here. I don't want to keep you guys here all day while I debate the score, but I think I would give this between a 70 and a 73, 74. So we'll say a C minus. But I don't want you guys to take away from this, but it's horrible. It's not horrible, but it's not really good either. And really, I would almost recommend this to someone that, and again, it's a blended Scotch. It's not a single malt, which in a future video, I need to really, really go into a lot more details on what is the difference between a single malt and a blended. I really need to go in more detail in a future video. But what I'd say is, if someone is new to blended Scotch or Scotch in general, and they just want to test the waters, my number one recommendation would probably be a Glenfiddich 12 or a Glenfiddich 14. And I previously reviewed the Glenfiddich 14. I'd also recommend a Glenmorangie 8 or a Glenmorangie 12. But I think definitely one of my top 5 beginner Scotches I'd recommend to people would be this Clan MacGregor, because, yeah, I'm not incredibly impressed by it, but it's cheap. And folks, I've drank worse at the end of the day. That's why I'm giving it a C minus. Okay? I'm giving it a C minus. Now, if I do a separate, countdown of maybe my top, I don't know, I can't, we'll say 5 to 8 or top 5 budget-friendly whiskeys. Really, it really is a good budget-friendly whiskey, but again, I'm not really overly impressed with it, with the taste, with the smoothness. But again, I've had a lot worse, and it's really not that bad. So again, you know, a C minus, that's still a passing grade. But um, again, sometimes I repeat myself. I'd like to thank everybody for who regularly watches my videos and subscribes to the channel. Last week, I made my first video. It was my first video in oh gosh, like almost several months, 7, 8 weeks. And man, it had almost 80 views in 5 or 6 days. So thank you guys. You know, this is just one of my many hobbies. I'm very blessed. You know, as my Sunday school teacher used to say, count your blessings. I feel very blessed. You know, uh, without being too Scottish and rambling on, I'm living the good life, and this is just one of my many hobbies, one of my many passions and pastimes. And I appreciate you guys. So thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Um, I had something else I was going to add, and it just kind of slipped my mind. Um, but remember, folks, be a kind human being if you can. Please treat others the way which you want to be treated. No one's perfect. We all make mistakes. I know I sure do. But do the very, very best that you can uh, to serve others and put the needs of others before yourself. But also, faster horses, younger women, older whiskey, and more money. Which I've said this multiple times. That's from a Tom T. Hall, one of my favorite country and western artists of the '70s, which I have on vinyl record in my study. That's from one of his songs, and it's one of his most popular songs. It's called "The Cowboy and the Poet," and then in parentheses, "Faster Horses." So I did not come up with that, as I've said, but I've adopted it because it's amazing. Um, it's not easy drinking whiskey in moderation, watching the birds, taking care of all of the stray animals with stray cats, reading good books, working for the number one company to work at and shop at in America. You know, I'm really blessed for have all of our cats that I have, and that animals that we take care of and try and rescue. And I'm very blessed that I get to dive in bed with every night with the most beautiful woman on the planet. So as we enter 2026, I just encourage everyone to be grateful for what you have, you know, and times are tough right now, but remember, it costs nothing just to be kind. And I don't want to come across as being preachy. That's not why you guys watch this, but it's a Scottish tradition to just ramble a little bit for just because you can. So I'm kind of continuing that Scottish tradition, number one. But number two, it's a crazy world out there, but just be kind, okay? But again, I give this a C minus. Well, wow. As I swirled that around on my tongue a little bit, now I'm starting to like it a little more. I don't know. Maybe I was too harsh on it. But for $10, it's really not bad. For $10 it could be a lot worse. Oh my gosh, this is almost a 20-minute review. Good grief. This is going to take an eternity to upload. Well, God bless, guys. Stay safe. Be a kind human. I hope 2026 treats you guys well. The last thing I have to say to everybody is this. My next upload is going to be a very special upload because it's going to be the 100th video review on my channel. That's right. It's been almost 7 years, about 7 years, and it's the 100th video that I've uploaded on. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. Sorry, it was kind of. Excuse me. It's the 100th video on the channel, and it's going to be a special whiskey, very special. I'm going to review, and wow, 100 videos. Isn't that amazing, guys? So make sure to to tune in here. It's probably going to be near the end of January, so just kind of keep make sure to click that that little bell so that way you can get the notifications for when I upload. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Thanks for subscribing and following the channel. And again, Clan MacGregor blended Scotch whiskey. I'm going to give it a C-. Happy trails, guys. Thanks for watching. This is your neighborhood-friendly Scottish whiskey hobbit. I'm signing out.